the internet to get current information. What I think, how I interpret this is my interpretation. I think what they're saying is, it's not like it's going out to the internet, copying and pasting something from an article and bringing it directly in. It's formulating stuff. I've heard the term based on data sets. So in my mind, it's using the internet. But what I'm thinking they're trying to say is, it's not, when we had the disruptive innovation of search engines like Google and Yahoo, it's not just as simple as a cut and paste. It's taking information from the internet and generating its own content.
Didn't you say that the last harvest of data was 2021?
Yeah.
So it's using the internet as of 2 years ago rather than the current.
Correct. Which is why if you wanted to find something on a current event, this would be essential uses. Now, AI opens, retains, and shares data. This is from their statement. Your data will not be sold to third parties, the company says. OpenAI says it does not share user data to third parties for marketing or advertising, but it does share user data with vendors and service providers for maintenance and operation of the site. That doesn't sound great. So, as a cautionary, I would never put any of my personal information in here. That's, I think, best practice for any use of technology anytime you're out there on the internet. Just so you know, ChatGPT is not the only game in town. Google has one called Bard. I have used it. It's not as advanced yet. We'll see what happens.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what's happening.
It's AI. It's taking over right now.
You said something.
All right.
Sounds like it's up.
No, I think it's coming out. Yeah.
Like, there's some you can just say, I want a slide presentation in PowerPoint and Google Slides and Canva. There's some that do specifically like that. Just to give you an idea, I Googled the best productivity tools. It was a list of 36. There are a lot of them out there, some for free, some for a fee. So what's going to emerge as the dominant tool? I thought Betamax had it. I thought Beta, it's like, it's smaller, it makes sense, but it didn't. You know, Microsoft Zune MP3 player, no, pager went. Blockbuster, Netflix tried 3 times to get them, but nope, they're not interested. So what's going to be the dominant tool in a year or two? Who knows? Absolutely, we don't know. So, in my opinion, the #1 reason that teachers should at least dip their toe in the pool is the one thing that we never have enough of. We never have enough time. This is the first thing I've seen since I started in education that literally has an opportunity to create or give you back time. Okay? So I want to show you what that looks like. I would love your opinion on if these time-saving tools are honorable. I think they are. But I'd love to hear your opinion. So let me give you an example of what ChatGPT is capable of doing. So I am now in ChatGPT. You can see, like I told you, there's these are plugins that will add increased functionality to the system. But I'm going to go down here and I'm going to grab a prompt that I've already created. So you can see it here. I'm very specific Because what I'm telling it to do, let me grab this. This is for a science. I'm a middle school teacher. Create for me an 8th grade science lesson tied to the Ohio Learning Standards and Model Curriculum for Science. I teach a 47-minute class. I wanted to address the following. You can see topic physical earth. I've tied it to the standards that I grabbed right off of the ODE website. I want 2 opening questions. I want 2 lesson plans, one having modifications for learners that may struggle with the content. I want 2 options for an in-class activity. I want 3 different exit tickets. I want a 10-question multiple choice quiz with answers. And organize this into an appropriate format for teaching. So I just take that and I paste that into ChatGPT. It's breaking down each activity into approximately how many minutes it thinks it should take. So there's lesson plan 1. Here's 2. Here's some suggested modifications, some suggested pieces of technology to enhance the lesson. Now the in-class activities. Here's my exit tickets. I don't need 3, I just want a choice. Here's my multiple choice quiz with answers. But actually only gave me 1, so I would have to ask for more. For me, I didn't mind writing lesson plans. Honestly, what I dislike the most was grading. But that's been, we've had a lot of assistance with that previous. But lesson planning takes a long time. So I'm not saying this is my final lesson plan, but in my mind, creating takes a long time. But creating also gives you, I'm a firm believer that as much as we have tools and we have data and we should collect data, we need to analyze data, we use data to inform. I still believe, truly believe, there's an artistry to teaching. This is not going to help me with that. But what I need to present and what I need to share, it will jumpstart me. Say, oh, I like that activity, but I would rather. So in my mind, creating this lesson would take 3 to 6 hours. Iterating it might be an hour. So I think this allows you to have a start on creating something instead of having to start from scratch. And I specifically tied it to the state. So you can link it to, so when it comes, now you still want to check it. You still want to check it, but I'm telling it what to use. That doesn't mean it's incapable of messing that up.
Yeah, I did it for you one time and it went a little rogue on me. So I told it exactly what it wrote on and then it regenerated.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I want to show you my favorite one. I want to show you my favorite one. A lot of people spend a lot of time, understandably, responding to emails. I had a lot of parents that, I believe in structure in my classroom. I think kids need to know structure. It's the real world. If a police officer pulls you over, you can't say, officer, I know it's 175 and a 55, but it's a manifestation of my IUP. And so anyways, so this is an example where I've taken a letter or an email. I received this email from a parent of a student that I gave it attention to. The parent said, why are you picking on my student in your classroom? My daughter said that everyone was misbehaving, but you picked on her because you don't like her. You need to explain to me why you are picking on her. I know that high school students can be difficult, but I teach my daughter blah, 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 blah. So write a response to this parent email in a kind tone that relates how much I care about all of my students, and that I will monitor her behavior going forward and keep her informed on how things are going. First and foremost, I want to assure you that I care deeply about all of my students, including my intention is never to single out or pick on a student regarding the incident that led to the detention and observed that she was so there it is, and it's done. Now, when I look, if you have any further concerns, or if there's specific information about blah, blah, blah. Okay, so.
Just that's a one paragraph.
Yeah, right. I know. What I would say. Yeah, yeah.
So watch this.
Yeah.
Really care and then you-
Yeah.
So watch this. Too nice and too long. I don't have to take the whole thing back in. Too nice and too long.
He broke it.
I've never seen it think this much.
There we go.
Huh.
Now, my favorite, rewrite this.
I like how it kind of, I mean, I don't know, but I am interested in how it sort of comments there at the bottom about how it's,
yeah,
like, what it did to respond to your own comment.
rewrite this using the vocabulary and the tone of Darth Vader.
Oh my God.
Never noticed.
Dave, you're gonna read it with Darth Vader's voice, right? Can you read it as Darth Vader for us?
I cannot. Okay,
Yeah.
your communication has been received. It is imperative to understand that in my domain, order is maintained with a firm hand. So-and-so was not singled out without cause. The disciplinary action ensued due to blank behavior. This was not a matter of preference or dislike, but a response to a disturbance in the established order of the platform. It says, your allegiance to your daughter's narrative is acknowledged. However, actions taken were in alignment with the policies that govern behavior within these walls. Shall monitor for content henceforth. Your cooperation in maintaining order and discipline is expected. Should you seek further discourse on this matter, it shall be entertained. Proceed with caution in your future communication.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my God.
Now, sometimes when I've done this, like it'll mention the force in the response.
Yeah,
Mention
right.
disturbance. Yeah. So it can do, I mean, that's create a 20-question quiz. One of my favorite ones is, see, there's cellular respiration. I mean, these are just all different, but I did one where, let's see if it's still in here. It should be. I did one where I asked it to, Lord of the Rings characters. So what I did was, I said, where's the destination player? For Lord of the Rings, what I asked it to do was create a table of the primary characters in the book series Lord of the Rings listed alphabetically, have a column for the character name, character strengths, character weaknesses, hero or villain, situation at the beginning of the books and at the end, and a brief description of how they would handle living in the year 2020. I can't remember. I can't do 20.
Oh,
All right, yeah.
yeah.
So like here's Aragorn leadership, so it made the chart. So handling 2020, he would lead with wisdom, adapt to modern leadership roles. So it can create charts. It can create, I mean, it's.
What did it say for Sauron?
Let's see. Sauron, power and manipulation over, he would be a hidden influencer manipulating global events.
Oh.
So you mean ChatGPT?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You found that.
So we transition and show you what this looks like in the world of math.
Can I?
Absolutely.
Can I offer a prompt in the world of math?
Oh, you want me to type something in?
Would you please?
I will. Just don't use big words.
Okay, write a 5-minute lecture introducing geometric topology with a focus on two manifolds. Geometric topology, TOPOLOGY, with a focus on two manifolds in the style of R.H. Bing.
Oh. What did we get there? There was an error.
Something seems to go up. That's all right. We'll copy and paste it.
Broken.
Give me like some secret code to break it.
No, I just
Let me put it in a
tried
new.
to think of
Let me
something.
put it, because that's an
might-
old chat. Let me put it in a new one.
Okay.
Okay, let's see what that does.
Oh,
I can't. I will read it for you.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Ladies, oh, wait till it stops.
oh, it's first paragraph or something.
5 minutes.
R.H. Bing, with his imaginative and often visually striking examples, brought to light the intricate and sometimes counterintuitive nature of geometric topology. His work, particularly on the Bing house and dog bone space, illustrates the world of topology can be bewildering as it is beautiful.
And so this is
Bing
writing.
was particularly adept at visualizing complex topological phenomena and translating them into tangible, often playful examples.
But this is not in his style, this is talking about him. It was supposed to be written as if he were giving the lecture.
Well, the start was that.
Rewrite
Let's see if it says,
as if R.H. Bing
you're giving the lecture.
was giving.
I thought, wouldn't it be words? You said.
I don't know. It'll figure it out. Good. Good day to you all, dear friends and fellow explorers of the mathematical. Today, let's embark on a delightful journey through the enchanting world of geometric topology. A manifold, you see, is a space that at every point resembles our familiar Euclidean space. When we talk about two-dimensional manifolds or surfaces, we mean that around every point there's a little neighborhood that looks quite like the flat two-dimensional plane we know so well. I'll copy this and add it to the
Yeah,
presentation.
it just doesn't sound like Bing. to me.
Absolutely. Not knowing him, it sounds just like him.
He teaches, he would be speaking in a Texas drawl, for instance.
So a couple of things when it comes to math.
Yeah.
These are some suggestions when it comes to things that people that know a lot more about math than I do have suggested as ways to utilize this as a tool. Conceptual fluency. If we go deeper into the understanding of step-by-step questions and how to check your answer. Just to kind of give you, you've seen everything thus far as text-based. So here is what it looks like when you ask it specifically to do math. So let's use algebra to solve this problem. So basically, it doesn't solve, it does solve the problem, but it shows you how it got there as well. So then I say, I don't understand. So the answer, so the three sides of the triangle are 13, 10, and 26. I write, I don't understand how you got this answer. Explain it to me in the simplest way.
No, this triangle exists.
I don't have to recite anything else.
You're right, you're right.
Let's break this down into simpler steps. So with me not having the expertise in math, none of this makes it easier for me. But I see this as a nice assistive tool when you're having a student that's struggling to understand. And then I ask it finally, is there any other way to solve this problem? Certainly. There are often multiple ways to solve a math problem. Another approach. And it goes through the problem again. So I just wanted you to see what that looks like when it's actually doing mathematics. So then just for fun, I said, hey, thanks for your help. You're welcome. If you have any more questions or need any additional assistance, feel free to reach out. Happy learning.
Any time of day or night.
So I also wanted you, just so you can see, and you may or may not already know this, ChatGPT can also write code.
Yeah.
So we're not going to go into great depth. I just wanted you to see what that looks like when it writes code. So I asked it to create, I believe, a calendar widget on a website, or write the code using Python to embed a calendar into an existing website. So it'll do it in Python, it'll do it in Java, it'll do it in HTML, whatever coding language you ask it to do, it will show you. I've heard people that are computer science teachers tell you that if you have something that's not working, if you paste the code into here and say, why isn't this working? It will debug the code. Okay, I just wanted you to see that. And I also want you to also see, which this was new learning to me, but in the state of Ohio, we have computer science standards, which that wasn't necessarily new learning for me, but I did not know that AI appears in the 2022 Ohio Computer Standards K through 12. So it's embedded into our computer science standards. It's all there. And just so you can see here's an example of what they look like. So these are not things that we're scrambling to figure out how to integrate into our states. They're already there. The standards are already there. And you can see we look at perception, we look at representation and reasoning, learning, natural interaction, but all of them at some level have some ties into artificial intelligence. So in my opinion, what this provides as a value to educators in Ohio is there's different ways that teachers can enhance what they're already doing with the goal of increasing or improving student outcomes. What time do we eat lunch?
Noon.
Oh, like now.
Okay. So here's what you have access to all of this because I want to be respectful to timelines. So what this goes through is, this is a big state initiative. AI is a powerful tool to personalize learning, unquestionably. So all that's in there. There's different charts provided on how do we use this responsibly. So once again, all of this will be shared with you. One thing I did want to show you is this. And this is hyperlinked, but one of the things to keep in mind is there's really efficient ways to make sure that this works better for you. So these are the power tips. Always assign a role. Who am I that's asking this or putting in this prompt? I'm a teacher, I'm a student, I'm a character in a novel, I'm a historical figure, I'm a kangaroo, I'm a pirate. It will write like a pirate, or it will write like Jay Gatsby, or it will write like whomever you want. Tell it what you want. I want a list. I want it in order. I want a chart. Change the style of your answer. You already saw it. You can have it be written by Shakespeare, Dr. Seuss, Darth Vader. Give it a lexile level. I told you this. Explain it to a child. All of these are included, so you'll be able to see it's just a quicker way to get to the answer that you want. And then I'll close with this. It's not bad. I hate to close with bad. This is not bad. But in the hands of students, everything we've done as teacher, in the hands of a student. I'm glad everybody's seated because otherwise people may fall over. But believe it or not, there was dishonesty before ChatGPT. So this is from 2002 to 2015. The percentage of students that said they cheated on a test, committed plagiarism, or any form of cheating. I'm not embracing it, it's not new. Okay, it is not new. 24,000 high school students, this was 8 years ago. So what gets tricky, and I'm just gonna tell you, think this through, not that you won't. If you really look at the definition of plagiarism, it's taking the words of another human. So it's not doing that. These are not the words of another human. It's creating an original response. So a fun thing to debate and discuss. Plagiarism is taking someone else's work or ideas. Now the part that's at the end, passing them off as your own, that's where this becomes intellectual property. A human has the rights to them. Once again, is there a human involved here? This is a clickable resource to Matt Miller's Ditch That Textbook. He has some amazing things on AI. So that's the question. We have to define what's using my resources versus cheating. So I'm going to close with this, and then I can tell you some other stuff later if you want to ask, but this is an activity, and this is in the slide deck, and you're welcome to, I'm going to give you an example, and what I want you to do is raise your hand when they've crossed the line and it has become academically dishonest. The student wrote all assignment content without consulting AI or the internet. All right. The student wrote a complete document, then submitted it to AI for feedback. The student made edits according to the feedback and submitted it. That.
Can I ask the context course?
Let's just say let's say.
English class or the science class?
Which would you prefer?
Well, it's science class, it's fine. It's English class, and there may be a problem.
Correct. I would 100%. Let's say it's science.
Okay.
Let's say it's
Science.
to be honest,
Please.
because to be honest, in my opinion, this is, if I'm going to put this on a scale of scariness, this is the most scary to an English teacher.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
This is the calculator
Yeah.
in the 60s.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're in a science class. All right. So we're still good at that. The student consulted the internet and or AI for ideas, then wrote and submitted the final product. But the student wrote the main ideas and plugged them into AI. The AI then generated a draft and offered feedback to improve it. Couple. I mean, this is very subjective. So what's the feedback, and then did they then we're making some huge assumptions, but it's something, I mean, I just think the value is processing. The student plugged a prompt into AI. It generated multiple responses. The student then used the best parts, edited it, and submitted it. And I want to make sure we eat on time. You can see it's going to get, the student plugged the prompt into AI, he created a response, the student read, edited, and just submitted it. And lastly, the student plugged the prompt. So there are going to be debates as to where we do this. So once again, these are just different ideas. There's some examples of house rules for students, how to use ChatGPT responsibly. Real quickly, AI detection models. I'm not going to bore you with this. I'll sum it up. They don't work. All of these. It said it had some parts that may have been generated or written by AI. Got 50% right. That's not good enough.
Yeah.
One quick aside to show you the effectiveness of these products. If you look here, AI, they plugged into an AI detector the US Constitution.
Huh.
And it came back that AI was used to generate this document. Either the founding fathers were time travelers, or we can assume that it's not very effective in detecting fraud.
We just got that with
Exactly. Exactly. So really, this is educators. This is, and I don't know how many of you watch this television show.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
This is, we do not have to panic. We just have to pivot. Like, what we need to tweak, we need to adjust. We do not need to reinvent. We just have to pivot. It's not going away. It does make certain tasks more efficient. It's Excel. We mentioned the worry of the English teacher, writing teacher. It excels at writing, but it's not limited to these. Okay, it's another possible tool for your tool belt. Here's where I think. So I kind of gave you, lesson planning and grading. One of the things that I think COVID has exposed to us, and we have a lot of students that were damaged by COVID. I was damaged by COVID. I mean, we all were. But colleges, universities, K-12, we have a renewed emphasis on SEL and connection to kids and relationships. So if I'm not spending 8 hours writing a lesson plan, here's how I see the value. I can go to that student that gives me fits. I can go watch his middle school football game, create a bond. I can provide extra help into a sport to a student that needs help with their homework. I can make better, deeper, more meaningful connections with my students. I have more time for that now instead of lesson planning and grading. Not that that's still part of my job, but I can do it more efficiently. So I think this really helps with this. If you're already familiar with this, try one of the apps that I shared with you. If you're new with it, just try it out. I'm gonna get my shameless plug. If you're not doing anything after you vote, get your sticker that you voted, head down to Southwest Ohio. If you've never heard of Jungle Gyms, you may have ever heard of Jungle Gym.
Jungle gyms?
Jungle Gyms?
Yeah.
It's right up the street from the conference. So if you want to go to Jungle Gyms,
I used to play at Jungle gyms.
oh, that's so
Yeah, yes.
now, if you've never been to one of the coolest, most eclectic supermarkets in the world, it's right up the street. We'd love to have you. If you want information about this, let me know. During lunch, if you have any questions, I'll definitely hang around. Let me know. If you want to connect with me via email, I can check. Yes, we did pick that dog out because of his ears. And no, he never grew into them. That's Zeke.
If you registered and had your email in our registration, I copied and pasted that and sent a link to Dave's slides to you. So check your email for his slides.
Yeah. And so there's there's all kinds of resources. If you want to see the visual, Adobe just came out with Firefly. Never been a huge Adobe thing because they eventually charge you, but this is spectacular for visuals. So almost all of these this is some free curriculum that is outstanding. So everything on here, there's other references to AI policies, discussions. Feel free to use any of these links. Yes, sir.
Yeah, from online, there were a couple of comments that some of these probably get to. One is that you can have it create slides. So
Yes, you can.
ChatGPT will, and then John replied that Google Slides is also adding the same thing because they don't want to get behind.
Yes, and there is actually an app called Slides GPT and it usually gives you the first 2 free, and it's like $2 for. I'll tell you what, I've spent on less honorable things, $2. $2 to have my slides that I then tweak and adjust and iterate instead of create. Absolutely. There are so many Canva, which is a exploding application. Now they just had a countdown. I think they have AI integration. There's an application I've used called, I can't remember which one it is. It's like Kahoot. It's called Quizzes or Quizalize. It does it's like an interactive game-based questioning tool. Now you don't have to make up the questions anymore. AI does it. You say 8th grade Ohio plate tectonics, it will create 10 questions for you You don't even have to make up the questions. Check them. So AI is being infused into almost any application that we have out there. So feel free, if anything on here triggers you, that is a link. If you scan that, it'll take you right to the presentation that Michelle mentioned. It's sent to you. I appreciate your time welcoming a social studies teacher into a science and math workshop. I really do appreciate it. And
Social science.
social science. All right, that sounds good. That sounds good. Thank you.
informative, entertaining, right? Presentation. I learned an awful lot.
Good.
And I know, I've played around with ChatGPT. I know that Grammarly will correct ChatGPT, which I find quite interesting.
Oh.
So thank you so much. So next we're going to have a panel discussion, and if you all are part of the panel, if you bring your name with you and go up there, that'd be great. And they are going to share their thoughts about artificial intelligence.
We're gonna have an overview by John Dutton, who is president and representing the Computer Science Teachers Association of Ohio. And he's going to give an overview, and then we're going to hear about teacher uses, student uses, and then the teaching of AI itself. Heather Wukovich from OCTM, the Ohio Council of Teachers of Mathematics, will talk about teacher uses. And Mike Zell, representing the Ohio Math Education Leadership Council, will be talking about student uses. Paul Post, who's representing the Ohio Technology and Engineering Educators Association, will be talking about the teaching of AI. And after that, Marianne Bovis from the Ohio MATIC, the Ohio Mathematical Association of Tutor Colleges, will be giving us the glimpse of the future. So as soon as we can get our technology going, we'll be hearing from John.
So good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to speak about artificial intelligence today on this panel. My name, again, is John Dutton. I am the president of the Computer Science Teachers Association of Ohio and a computer science teacher at MC² STEM High School in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Prior to teaching CS full-time, I taught biology, environmental science, physics, chemistry, and more for 16 years. Yay for science. What brings this discussion full circle for me is that I graduated from Case Western Reserve University in 2002 with, among other things, a minor in artificial intelligence. As we heard from Dave Clark this morning, AI is a disruptive and rapidly growing field. Many of the problems posed in the field are now solved, which of course has just led to new and more substantial and far-reaching problems today. However, for most teachers and citizens, AI has come to mean generative AI, and the generative AIs that we are all most familiar with, like ChatGPT, with which we just had a lot of fun, lean on what are called large language models, or LLMs. We as classroom teachers can use generative AI to make our lives easier. Dave introduced us to many of the applications, from developing quizzes, activity sheets, and writing recommendations, to help with grading and the creation of lesson plans. There are thousands of permutations of generative AIs as new apps are developed daily. This early explosive phase of generative AI applications may be akin to the dot-com boom, or as Dave said, books. Teachers are starting to fold these tools into their practice, but many are skeptical because student data privacy is far from guaranteed, since it's harvested to further train those large language models. And many districts have adopted blanket internet filtering policies that all but prevent student and teacher access to generative AIs. The second lens that we evaluate today is that of student usage of generative AI. In computer science, every conversation about students is a conversation about equity. In 2021, only 26% of computer and mathematical occupations were filled by females. Only 8.5% were Black, and only 8.3% were Hispanic or Latino-Latina. Generative AI, like the teaching of computer science itself, has the potential to level the playing field and democratize learning. Students can receive real-time feedback, assistance with resume development, and even guidance with how best to take advantage of networking opportunities. Of course, just like the fears about student usage of graphing calculators or Wikipedia a generation ago, students can and do misuse generative AI to cheat and plagiarize. Unlike graphing calculators of Wikipedia, many students are also using generative AI as chatbots to help deal with anxiety and mental health issues. The third and final lens to be considered today is the actual teaching of artificial intelligence. AI is a field that has existed for almost 70 years. Ever played a game against the computer? AI. But now, generative AI is in everything. your experience of the internet, your word processor, and of course your phone, and sometimes your living room. As Dave showed you briefly, we are not rudderless as teachers since Ohio has adopted AI standards as of 2022. Within these standards, there's considerable crossover with science and mathematics and other subject areas, like classification systems, scientific bias, sensing, grammar and language construction, statistical inference, and logical deduction. AI also has ethically cross-cutting concepts. When teaching AI, we must consider privacy, bias, and discrimination issues. For example, students and teachers may be familiar with sports videos that are processed, sometimes in real time, to determine what play happened, churn out statistics, and even analyze the game as it is being played. Spectators see this as a stunning addition to their viewing experience, but the same technology could be, and in some places is, used in public and private spaces in controversial ways, spurring deep ethical discussions with students who will quickly transition from being users to developers of AI. Thank you for having me today, and we look forward to an insightful discussion considering all three lenses: teacher usage of AI, student usage of AI, and the teaching of AI itself.
Thank you very much, John. At your tables, there are some little 3x5 index cards and OCTM notepads and other notepads. If questions come to your mind while you hear the panel speak, please jot them down, and if you're at home, put them in chat. And then when the presentations are completed, we'll have a chance to respond to those questions. So next we've got Heather, and she will be talking to us about teacher uses. She's here in person, and I think, well, Paul, can you move, or can you advance the slides, Nancy, perhaps?
No, we don't have individual slides.
We don't have slides? Okay, then we don't have to worry about it. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, so, I learned a whole bunch this morning. We use some things, now I know more things, and there's a whole bunch on my list that I want to explore some more. So, to be transparent, I don't know that I have specific things that I would share in addition to, but just, you know, some of the things that I have actually used it for were very much as Dave was talking about this morning, from helping with writing emails, or we've been doing some work, vision work in districts to really come to a shared belief on what they believe about teaching and learning mathematics. And so when I gather all that information, I've actually used ChatGPT to kind of put it together. And to his point, it was more like I did it one time, I'm like, oh, that's too long, make it shorter. And then I actually just regenerated it. And at the end, it's kind of a mishmash of both of those. So I think it really is a powerful tool, but I know that there's a pretty big learning curve in it too. So I'd like to pose the question back to the group. How many of you have used it, and in what ways do you use it to help you either personally or professionally?
Okay, thank you, Heather.
Does anyone have, has anyone, I posed a question.
Okay. I can stop now. I did answers in chat. Okay,
Anyone use it at all, or some familiarity?
I've used it with teachers to have them make quizzes over particular topics that they can use as a starting point. I mean, something we was said this morning is that that first draft is always the hardest, much easier to revise than come up with something from a blank piece of paper. And sometimes that's all that's needed. And so I've encouraged people to use it for that. Everything has to be checked because of last.
And Jenny, do you mind sharing what you had shared at lunch about how you used it recently?
Oh, I used ChatGPT to make a presentation, because I had to do a presentation on scaffolding PD for my district on and I had read several books and some research, but I had like a million sticky notes. Everything was completely unorganized, so I just asked it to give me just a suggestion for a presentation, and it gave me slide one should be welcome. That's what it said. I did it instead of like what is scaffolding, and it had some points, and so I could use that outline, which is kind of helpful organize my thoughts and then added what I learned. And there was one slide I needed some more examples, so I said, give me some examples. And I needed the example, I said, give me a math problem that was scaffolded, I think it was 672 divided by 8. And it said, it showed me the algorithm, I was like, no, I don't like this, give me something else. And it did, so it was really it just helped, like save some time, but I still had to put what I had. And then we just wrote emails, like, what do you say? Write an email that you're fifth one by math class. That's what I typed in, and then it gave her a really nice email.
Pretty straightforward again.
Yeah.
Lovely. All right, well, let's keep this going, and we can have a general discussion at the end too of how these different aspects interact. Our next panelist is Ann Meixel, and she's going to be talking about student uses and possible concerns about those. Maybe.
Well, it's probably more about concerns than it is actual trying uses. When graphing calculators changed the way mathematics was taught, or is taught, I should say, particularly at the secondary level, it really enhanced instruction. It allowed kids to explore mathematics that wasn't accessible before. And it changed the discourse within the classroom and around certain mathematical topics. So there is a potential with any new technology to change the way mathematics may be taught in the classroom. Our challenge is, though, is to make sure that it's used in a way that enhances instruction. And we need to be prepared to reflect and really think carefully about how we're going to evaluate the use of AI within the mathematics classroom. It will make some mathematics more accessible for some students, but on the other hand, it may not enhance the way kids learn mathematics in other areas. For example, during the presentation, I was playing around on chat and put in a problem and discovered very quickly it cannot handle visual representations. So the impact it may have, at least in the short term, is going to be very different based upon the grade level of the students. So as a community, how do we find a way to work with mathematics teachers so that the use enhances instruction, enhances the student's experience, improves the dialogue within the discourse within the classroom, and what mathematics is learned and how it is learned.
Great. So next up is Paul Post, and he is coming from more of a technology and engineering perspective, representing the Ohio Technology and Engineering Educators Association. And he's going to talk about teaching AI to kids.
So it's already been mentioned, it's part of the state standards for computer science already. So it's in there with a wide range of things. I don't even say a whole lot more about that. But I think one of the things to keep in mind and we want our students to understand is, so it's going out and ingesting the web, but it's doing it with statistical methods. We talked about fuzzy logic before, that kind of thing. So it's just coming up with a high probability of what it should say. All right. And you think about everything that's out on the web and it ingested that. There's a lot of not good out on the web, right? And a lot that's not equitable out on the web and that kind of thing. So these are all things we need to look forward going to. I was just thinking now about, you know, we know people game all kinds of things that are out there. So if you've got a student competition, the school that does the best job of getting their parents to vote in whatever the online thing is, you know, they win and that kind of stuff. So what happens if other countries are working to game the system? You know, so when it's just the whole web, is it adjusting around worldwide, and some country sort of change what's out there by changing what they're allowing on their only on their net? So there's just things to think about. We want our students to understand that that's going on so they can make good choices about what they're getting out of the system.
And as we learned earlier, the internet doesn't know everything. The internet doesn't know apparently that R.H. Bing teaches with the Texas drawing. And maybe doesn't have a YouTube video of him presenting because he died before the YouTube was out there. So there's things, it's biased toward what's available easily on the web. Okay, so do we have questions that have come up or are of immediate concern that we should answer?
Can I ask a question without writing it down, or you have to write it down?
I think you can probably ask the question without writing it down, and you will be allowed to speak at this time as well.
Thank you. You just warned about the equity thing, and I think we all know that the web has got lots of not just bias, but actual hate and things like that. How does AI filter that kind of prejudice out when it's dealing with, because it's out there and it's fairly prevalent.
That's an excellent question. Okay, we'll keep that in our minds and reflect on that, and we will respond to that as a panel in just a little bit. But maybe we should hear from Mary Ann in the interest of time.
Okay.
And Mary Ann is representing the Ohio Mathematical Association of Junior Colleges. The acronym is actually has a transposition of letters. It should be Ohio MATYC.
Thank you. Peggy has been sending the panel several papers about AI. And one of the papers, which turns out to be a working paper, caught my attention. And so I want to share a little bit about this working paper, a very, very small amount about the working paper and one idea. Now, what I need to say is this working paper is at the 30,000 foot level or the 60,000 foot level, and it is futuristic, So what do we see? Well, what happened in the year 50 and what happened in the year 1050? Well, what we see at that time was that very few people could read and write, correct? We all agree to that? Okay. And how did everybody else learn if they didn't read or write? They learned what? Orally or visually, right? They learned orally or visually. What happened then in the year 1440? They gave us the answer this morning. What happened in the year 1440? The printing press, right? And that was 600 years ago. Even as of 200 years ago, only 15% of the people worldwide were literate. Today, that is flipped. And the working paper would indicate the credit goes to teachers. So we congratulate everybody in the room here. So we jump ahead to 2023, and that's flipped now. 85% worldwide is literate, with only 15% illiterate. So what does the paper indicate for the future in one small area? And it indicates the following. One thought is that students in the future will not need to learn to read and write. And I have three examples here. The first was, well, when I was in Lima, which is where I taught, one of my friends' fathers could not read. So when she was very little, to be able to go to their family home, which was in another state, and he could not read the sign, so they turned right at the Red Barn, left at this Ohio station, and right across the river. Second example, my daughter is good friends with a couple in California. They're in their 70s now, and he's retired, and he'd been a head of maintenance at a large research institution in California. Well, one day he gets this memo that all managers throughout the university are to report to on this day at this time in this room to take an IQ test. So he goes off, reports to the room, sitting down, doing the IQ test. He looks up, he's only a third of the way through it, and everybody else is gone. And he said to the proctor, do you want me to leave? And the proctor said, no, finish the test. So he did. So a couple days later, somebody calls him in, goes through the papers and looks at him and says, you should be a PhD. He, like my friend's father, had real anxiety from going from point A to point B. Today, what do we have? GPS. He just loves audiobooks. He is always asking Alexa how to spell something. And my third example is 30 years ago, in a course which we would today call pre-algebra, I had a blind student, and I had a desk or table also in my office, and she sat on one side of the table and I sat on the other side of the table, and her dog sat under the table. And I taught her how to solve linear equations and how to use the distributive law. And she got a legitimate C in the course. So what is AI going to do now in the future for the students who really, in fact, have tremendous difficulty reading? Will that change things? Remember, we looked at the year 50, 1050. What happens in 2050? Will we have a completely different educational process for students who truly have trouble reading? One of the types of things that happened last week was, besides getting sick, I thought, well, what did I have? So what do you think this is?
How to take it.
Anybody want to guess? Thank you.
Yeah,
How to take a COVID test. So I have to read this at least twice or 3 times before I can take this COVID test, right? And I did the COVID test. I'm sitting down reading, how to read the little thing, was it whatever. And so I was looking at this, and what do we see at the top? Can you see that, Kim?
It's a QR code.
A QR code. And underneath the QR, or on top of the QR code, it says instruction video. So if I point my phone at it, and in this case I tried it, I'd punch a couple buttons, but then it came up with a video, which was a cartoon character showing me how to do the test. But
you need to be able to read to know where the
QR code is. I thought about that. You needed to be able to read to know where the QR code was.
Right. So
I mean,
Well-
when you see a QR code, you just know we have to do it.
Yeah.
It's like our kids would just know.
But
Yeah.
what is it?
Yeah,
But
they wouldn't even care. They just know it's gonna take a.
right.
If I didn't know what else to do, like if I had no idea about that, I mean, okay, I'm going to try this, yeah.
And
Yeah.
super tiny,
Yeah.
like you need a
I don't know.
Okay.
And I thought to myself a couple things, and I thought to myself, what happens if people can't read? You're feeling sick. How do you take this crazy test? Now, what I want to do real quick, because we have exactly 4 minutes left, is to indicate that Peggy will be glad to send you this paper. It's the future of AI in education, 13 things we can do to minimize the damage. This paper is 45 pages long. 6 pages are bibliography. It is very dense. It's divided into 3 parts. The first part tells you how the brain works, how AI works, which was very interesting, other general stuff. The second part is future ideas that are in the science fiction area for sure. And the third part is 13 things that we need to be doing now. And one of the things it does say, and I'll stop, is that this paper aims to catalyze the debate and reduce the probability that we sleepwalk to a destination that we don't want and can't reverse back out of. So those of you that want to read something slightly scary, feel free to read this. Feel free to read this paper, because it's not for tomorrow. But as the paper said, one of the people, they think that AI would be more mature in 2050, now thinks maybe 2040. And would it be possible, even in the year 2040, that we would teach students differently who cannot read? And if we don't do it, will companies come in and set up charter schools to do it for us? And that's, I'm into my science fiction realm again. And Gray, I will shut up.
Well, it's 1:50, so, it's perfect timing. It doesn't leave us a lot of time for questions and discussions. The next, 5 minutes is is kind of a transition time, so I don't know.
Why don't you go 5 more minutes and they'll make
Is
it
that
up to the end.
transition time? Thank you. Yes.
Question, comments on
we
the,
had a question from Peggy already. So let's, does anyone have any thoughts about Peggy's question, that there is false and hateful information on the internet, and the ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence that works in the realm of I forget what it's called.
LLMs.
It's using natural language simulation, whatever, generation.
Process.
Yeah, so it creates words, text, paragraphs, and now even some non-textual forms like tables and graphs in a limited way. So will the students be able to discern what is true and false, what is hateful, and what any thoughts about that issue?
Well, it's related. I guess it's related. I mean, I know nothing about the technology as far as that goes. But I mean, I do remember that Dave this morning said that there's some effort to, limit or constrain, like as these things are harvesting data, like, constraining some of that. But I mean, it would be very difficult, I would think. But to me, I think one of the things that this speaks to is the value of an education that is not just all about preparing for and I'm going to tie this in, but preparing for specific careers. In other words, more of a liberal arts kind of education that's humanistic, and that allows kids to just continually analyze and reflect and debate and these things that are human that we need to be thinking about. Yeah,
I would say that there's no new on this. I mean, I was struggling with issues with kids finding more resources that look valid on the web prior to this. Just making sure I think kids understand that ChatGPT is itself not invaluable is probably the critical piece there. That it's just lie to you because it's based off of human actual writing and UI. So it's built into it that you could have it lie to you being set up to do that.
So information literacy, critical thinking will become more important for students now more than that. Those have always been important, but they're becoming increasingly.
Can I say one additional thing too? It ties to what you said earlier about graphing calculators. And so this is going away from Peggy's question a bit, but I think it's related actually in a way. But just as you were talking about that analogy, I thought, I spend a lot of time in secondary classrooms, and I see a lot of teachers that are, having kids use graphing calculators or even the Desmos graphing calculator or something similar. But still in many cases, not all, but in many cases using them very procedurally. And so not really, so it's, I think, and you did, I mean, one thing you said, and I sort of underlined it as I was writing down my notes here, but how graphing calculators change the way students could learn, or that lessons could be designed. And then my own question that I wrote down was, for whom did this change the most? For which students did that learning really change the most? And probably the students with status and privilege, going back to your question. Yeah.
But when you look at graphing calculators, I was talking to Marianne back in the 90s. Bert Waite and Frank Savannah started the Teachers Teaching with Technology, and Ohio Med had partnered with them, and OCTM too. And we ran these technology conferences, and we had all these different things that we learned, and there was a lot of professional development. We cannot expect teachers to use AI properly
unless they have the professional development to do it. And today, we are all collectively learning more about it and getting some professional development. But without that piece, how can we hope our students to learn how to use AI appropriately?
And it has to be ongoing. Most high school teachers of mathematics do not use graphing technology in anywhere close to an optimal way. And the change has since the 1990s. It's been around for 35 years, but most teachers now were taught in less than optimal ways about graphing calculators, and they're teaching the way they learn. And so professional development is critical. There's no way in 4 years you can learn everything you need to be a teacher. And so it has to be ongoing professional development. It can't be like, oh, this year we'll have AI professional development because that's the hot thing, and then we won't ever do it again. You know, so it has to be ongoing, and we have to really change the system of teachers and teacher education. That becomes a lifelong thing, and it's done in a meaningful way.
And a part of that meaningful way is that the teachers are themselves involved. And we see that in some places and we don't see it in other places. It's not a top-down thing. It's let's all work on this together. This is in our class.
Right. And the example that Nancy used was teachers teaching with technology is the name of the organization that Berkowitz and Frank Mann established. And who are the primary professional development people in that organization? They're teachers teaching other teachers how to teach with technology.
So I just wanted to, I just wanted to touch base really quick about the concern about not hallucinations, which is a thing, right? Large language models do hallucinate, and that's kind of scary. But also about misinformation, disinformation, and just false information, right? Those are obviously different things, but these large language models, they get trained by all of us all the time. And so the information that gets used and that gets engaged with, that's what is going to strengthen those ties, and then is going to be the information that is provided to other users. So essentially what that means is that the more that we engage with any misinformation or disinformation, the more that's going to disseminate, because you know, these language models don't know truth from fiction, right? They don't know anything in the sense that humans know anything. So it is really important as users, all of us, our students included, right? That we are, and I think this goes back to what everyone was saying, that we are teaching critical thought, right? And that being not only prompt engineering being a career of the future, but critical thought being the skill of the future. And so those two things, as far as teachers of students in this generation, regardless of what we teach, those two things being really important going forward.
Okay, I think that's a good note to end this conversation. Thank you, John, for joining us, and everyone else online.
Thank you very much, Greg, for moderating, and thank you all for participating and